Hello and welcome. I'm Neha Khanna and you're watching America 360, a brand new show designed to keep you informed and up to speed on the biggest stories shaping the United States today. From the power halls of Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. to everyday conversations in living rooms across the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast and everywhere in between. We are covering the news that matters. From breaking news to deep dives into America's political and cultural pulse, we are here to connect the dots and bring you the full picture. If you're looking to stay ahead on all things America, you've come to the right place. America 360 is here with you every step of the way. If it matters to America, you'll find it right here. Stay informed, stay connected. This is America 360. It all began with an escalator malfunction at the UN headquarters in New York. Now it's the subject of an investigation and multiple conspiracy theories being fanned online by America's right wing. Some are even calling it an assassination attempt on their president. Yes, you heard that right. What started as an awkward moment for President Donald Trump and the First Lady is now at the center of a diplomatic spat, with the White House demanding answers and Trump himself turning the incident into a stinging critique of the UN. Our report tonight looks at how a broken escalator and a faulty teleprompter seem to have become symbols of a larger battle between Washington and the world body, whose very relevance and purpose is being questioned by the US president.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
What first appeared to be a harmless mishap inside the United Nations building in New York has now escalated into a diplomatic controversy involving President Donald Trump and his administration. The stir began when an escalator carrying President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump abruptly came to a halt. The two continued on foot without incident, but the unusual stoppage immediately drew attention. In an ordinary setting, it might have been dismissed as a technical snag. At the UN, however, it quickly became the subject of political speculation. Soon after, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt took to social media, describing the malfunction as unacceptable. She went further, suggesting it might not have been accidental at all. Her post stated, "If anyone at the UN intentionally stopped the escalator while the President and First Lady were on it, they should be investigated and removed immediately."
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. It's working now. Just one off. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. I can only say that whoever's operating this teleprompter is in big trouble. Many years ago, a very successful real estate developer in New York, known as Donald J. Trump, I bid on the renovation and rebuilding of this very United Nations complex. I remember it so well. I said at the time that I would do it for $500 million, rebuilding everything. As far as I'm concerned, frankly, looking at the building and getting stuck on the escalator, they still haven't finished the job.
The demand raised eyebrows among diplomats, since mechanical failures are common in such a large complex. But suspicions grew after a Times article claimed UN employees had previously joked about cutting power to escalators and elevators during Trump's visits, joking they would tell him the organization had run out of money.
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. and then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
Although the president initially laughed off the incident, the glitches didn't end there. Just minutes later, as he began addressing the UN General Assembly, Trump's teleprompter froze. With the room watching, he paused, looked toward the staff, and remarked, "Whoever is running this teleprompter is in big trouble." The comment drew chuckles, but also highlighted his growing irritation. Trump later tied the two mishaps together, using them as a metaphor for what he sees as the UN's broader inefficiencies. He told delegates the body was failing to respond to major international crises, dismissing it as an institution with, quote, "a broken escalator and a broken teleprompter."
All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter.
Beyond the quips, Trump pointed to what he called his achievements in ending 7 endless wars, contrasting U.S. action with what he portrayed as UN inaction. His sharp words were both a rebuke of the institution and a rallying cry for his base. Reactions were mixed. Some diplomats brushed off the incidents as typical Trump showmanship. But the White House's call for an inquiry suggests Washington is treating it seriously. Critics say the president is inflating minor inconveniences into unnecessary disputes. Supporters argue it reflects his willingness to challenge an international body he views as ineffective and dismissive of American concerns. So what started as a 15-second escalator stall has snowballed into a symbolic clash between the Trump administration and the UN. Was it sabotage, coincidence, or just bad luck? That may never be clear. What is certain, Donald Trump turned 2 technical glitches, an escalator and a teleprompter, into a headline-making moment, leaving this year's General Assembly remembered as much for its drama as its diplomacy.
Donald Trump's fiery address, which his critics are calling a meandering rant at the United Nations, has once again put his worldview on full display. Part boast, part broadside, and, well, many untruths too. In a nearly hour-long speech, Trump praised his own record, claimed credit for ending wars, some imaginary ones too, and said, surprise, surprise, that he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize. But he also turned his fire on the UN itself, mocking its failures and questioning its very purpose. Supporters are calling it Trumpism at its best. Critics see it as an unhinged rant. Take a look at the key moments from President Donald Trump's speech at the UN General Assembly.
It's too bad that I had to do these things instead of the United Nations doing them. And sadly, in all cases, the United Nations did not even try to help in any of them. I ended 7 wars, dealt with the leaders of each and every one of these countries, and never even received a phone call from the United Nations offering to help in finalizing the deal. All I got from the United Nations was an escalator that on the way up stopped right in the middle. If the First Lady wasn't in great shape, she would have fallen. But she's in great shape. We're both in good shape. We both stood. And then a teleprompter that didn't work. These are the two things I got from the United Nations, a bad escalator and a bad teleprompter. Thank you very much. And by the way, it's working now. It just went on. Thank you. That being the case, what is the purpose of the United Nations? The UN has such tremendous potential. I've always said it. It has such tremendous, tremendous potential, but it's not even coming close to living up to that potential. For the most part, at least for now, all they seem to do is write a really strongly worded letter and then never follow that letter up. It's empty words, and empty words don't solve war. The only thing that solves war and wars is action. Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled. Your countries are being ruined. The United Nations is funding an assault on Western countries and their borders. In 2024, the UN budgeted $372 million in cash assistance to support an estimated 624,000 migrants journeying into the United States. Then they said global warming will kill the world, but then it started getting cooler, so now they could just call it climate change, because that way they can't miss. It's climate change, because if it goes higher or lower, whatever the hell happens, there's climate change. China and India are the primary funders of the ongoing war by continuing to purchase Russian oil. But inexcusably, even NATO countries have not cut off much Russian energy and Russian energy products, which, as you know, I found out about 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't happy. Think of it. They're funding the war against themselves. Who the hell ever heard of that one? Not only is the UN not solving the problems it should, too often, it's actually creating new problems for us to solve. The best example is the number one political issue of our time, the crisis of uncontrolled migration. It's uncontrolled.
Jimmy Kimmel is back with a bang, and people can't stop talking about it. The comedian's return to late-night TV has reignited a fierce battle with President Donald Trump. What began as a suspension over his comments about the killing of Trump aide Charlie Kirk and Trump's reaction to it has now escalated into a political storm, with Trump blasting the ABC network, threatening lawsuits, and Hollywood rallying around Kimmel, saying this is a fight to protect free speech in America. Here's the full story.
And the truth is, I don't think what I have to say is going to make much of a difference. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. I have no illusions about changing anyone's mind. But I do want to make something clear, because it's important to me as a human, and that is, you understand that it was never my intention to make light of the murder of a young man.
Let Jimmy Kimmel rot. The U.S. President Donald Trump is furious. This is after comedian and American television host Jimmy Kimmel returned to the ABC network after nearly a week-long suspension. Trump lambasted the ABC network for reinstating Kimmel's late-night show, accusing him of political bias. In a highly criticized public post on Truth Social, Trump asked ABC, "Why would you want someone who is not funny and play 99% positive Democrat garbage?" The U.S. president also threatened to slap a lawsuit on what he says is a true bunch of losers. In the past, Trump's administration used threats, lawsuits, and federal government pressure to try to exert more control over the media industry. In fact, Trump sued ABC and CBS over news coverage and filed defamation lawsuits against the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. The Kimmel Show was suspended last Wednesday following his comments on the assassination of Trump aide Charlie Kirk. Kimmel joked about President Trump's reaction to Kirk's killing, comparing it to how a 4-year-old mourns a goldfish. Kimmel has remained publicly silent on his suspension. On Tuesday, he posted a picture of himself with the late TV producer and free speech advocate Norman Lear on Instagram with a caption of "Missing this guy today." Kimmel has been a relentless critic of Donald Trump in his comedy. He had suggested that many Trump supporters were trying to capitalize on Kirk's death and were desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them. Later, Trump-appointed Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr said it appeared that Kimmel was trying to directly mislead the American public with his remarks about Tyler Robinson, the 22-year-old Utah man charged with Kirk's killing. Kimmel's suspension had also triggered a national discussion about freedom of speech. Hundreds of entertainment luminaries, including Tom Hanks, Barbra Streisand, and Jennifer Aniston, signed a letter calling ABC's move a dark moment for freedom of speech in the U.S.
Even though I don't agree with many of those people on most subjects, some of the things they say even make me want to throw up. It takes courage for them to speak out against this administration, and they did, and they deserve credit for it, and thanks. But one thing I did learn from Lenny Bruce and George Carlin and Howard Stern is that a government threat to silence a comedian the president doesn't like is anti-American. That's anti-American. And I am so glad we have some solidarity on that from the right and the left and from those in the middle like Joe Rogan. Maybe the silver lining from this is we found one thing we can agree on, and maybe we'll even find another. This puts them at risk. The President of the United States made it very clear he wants to see me and the hundreds of people who work here fired from our jobs. Our leader celebrates Americans losing their livelihoods because he can't take a joke. He was somehow able to squeeze Colbert out of CBS. Then he turned his sights on me, and now he's openly rooting for NBC to fire Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and the hundreds of Americans who work for their shows who don't make millions of dollars.
The United States has just shaken up the H-1B visa system again, and the changes could hit Indian tech workers the hardest. Days after President Donald Trump imposed a staggering $100,000 fee on applications, his administration has unveiled sweeping new rules that scrap the lottery system and tilt the odds in favor of higher-paid foreign workers. Critics say the move could crush opportunities for young talent, while supporters insist it will protect American jobs.
The United States has just dropped another bombshell on the H-1B visa system. Days after President Donald Trump signed a proclamation to curtail it, Washington has unveiled a sweeping new proposal.
We need workers, we need great workers, and this pretty much ensures that that's what's going to happen. I think, Sean, do you agree with that?
Well,
they love it. They love it. They really love it. They need it.
The Department of Homeland Security wants to scrap the long-standing lottery system and replace it with a weighted selection process. Under the new rules, H-1B visas would favor higher-paid, higher-skilled foreign workers. Those at the top wage tier, earning more than $162,000 a year, would see their names entered into the pool 4 times, but those at the lowest tier, only once. The move comes right after Trump imposed a $100,000 fee for every new application. He declared the incentive must be to hire American workers, not rely on cheaper foreign labor.
Everyone's going to be happy, and we're going to be able to keep people in our country that are going to be very productive people. And in many cases, these companies are going to pay a lot of money for that, and they're very happy about it. And remember, the country,
it's just a fee, right?
yeah,
Fee to America.
the country would rather not have to pay $100,000, but and they'd rather, how do you do that? You hire Americans. So there's an incentive to hire American. But there may be instances where it's better off doing it through expertise or whatever it may be. But they're both unbelievable, whether it's a gold card or anything else that we talked about today.
$100,000 per year. So the whole idea is no more will these big tech companies or other big companies train foreign workers. They have to pay the government $100,000, then they have to pay the employee. So it's just not economic. If you're going to train somebody, you're going to train one of the recent graduates from one of the great universities across our land, train Americans, stop bringing in people to take our jobs. That's the policy here, $100,000 a year for H-1B visas, and all of the big companies are on board. We've spoken to them about the gold card.
They
and
love
this.
it.
The H-1B visa has long been the lifeline of America's technology and engineering sectors, drawing skilled talent from across the globe. But critics in the White House, like Staff Secretary Will Scharf, call it one of the most abused visa systems in the country.
One of the most abused visa systems in our current immigration system has been the H-1B non-immigrant visa program. This is supposed to allow highly skilled laborers who work in fields that Americans don't work in to come into the United States of America.
Ryan Routh, accused of attempting to assassinate President Trump, then presidential candidate, on his own golf course last year, has been found guilty on all charges. Let's take a look at the bizarre trial, the chilling details of the plot, and the reaction from Trump and top law enforcement officials.
A Florida jury has found 59-year-old Ryan Routh guilty of attempting to assassinate U.S. President Donald Trump. The verdict marks a dramatic conclusion to a trial that gripped the nation with bizarre twists and disturbing details. The case dates back to September 15, 2024. Trump, then a presidential candidate, was playing golf at his own West Palm Beach course, just minutes from Mar-a-Lago, when Secret Service agents spotted a rifle barrel sticking out from the bushes. Agents opened fire on the suspect, later identified as Routh, who fled but was quickly arrested nearby. Investigators recovered a semi-automatic rifle with a scope and extended magazine hidden in the brush. Prosecutors revealed Routh had carried a list of Trump's appearances, along with a chilling note to a friend admitting this was an assassination attempt on Donald Trump. Trump reacted immediately after the guilty verdict, thanking law enforcement and witnesses who helped bring Routh to justice. Calling him an evil man with evil intentions, Trump hailed the moment as a very big day for justice in America. Attorney General Pam Bondi went further, describing the attack as not only an assault on our president, but an affront to the entire nation. Routh pleaded not guilty and chose to represent himself. His unusual defense included references to Hitler and Putin, a request for access to a putting green, and even a challenge to Trump for a game of golf. The judge eventually cut his opening remarks short. Routh will be sentenced on December 18th. He now faces the possibility of life in prison. The case comes in the wake of another attempt on Trump's life in July 2024, when a gunman opened fire at a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, killing one and injuring several others, including Trump himself. After the verdict, FBI Director Kash Patel warned of a troubling rise in political violence, vowing to keep those who plot such attacks off the streets and behind bars. For now, Ryan Routh sits in federal custody, found guilty of plotting to kill a president on a quiet Florida golf course, an attack that could have changed history.
Washington, D.C. is now home to a new and provocative installation on the National Mall, a bronze statue depicting President Donald Trump and the late convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein in a hand-holding pose. The statue is called Best Friends Forever. The 12-foot-long artwork, complete with satirical plaques, has sparked debate over its message and the mysterious group behind it. This comes on the back of other protests, art and royal-themed mockery during Trump's recent UK visit. All of it aimed at highlighting Trump's ties to Epstein as the president's opponents continue to demand that the Epstein files be released.
A bronze-coated statue mocking Donald Trump's ties to Jeffrey Epstein has appeared in Washington, D.C. The 12-foot-long artwork was mysteriously installed on the east end of the National Mall and quickly drew attention. The statue depicts Trump and Epstein holding hands, their faces twisted into awkward smirks, with legs kicked back in childlike joy. Beneath the artwork, 3 plaques offered a satirical narrative of their so-called friendship. One reads, "We celebrate the long-lasting bond between President Donald J. Trump and his closest friend, Jeffrey Epstein." Another plaque, signed with Trump's name, reads in part, "A pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday," and may every day be another wonderful secret. The third, attributed to Epstein, suggests he too shared in those secrets. The creator has not come forward, but according to reports, the work is linked to the Secret Handshake Project, a protest art collective known for provocative political installations. It's not their first jab at Trump. In recent months, they've installed a bronze pile of feces on a congressional desk, said to honor the January 6th rioters. Another piece, titled Dictator Approved, showed a golden thumbs-up crushing the Statue of Liberty. The Trump administration quickly dismissed the statue. A White House spokesperson told TMZ, "Liberals are free to waste their money however they see fit." But it's not news that Epstein knew Donald Trump, because Donald Trump kicked Epstein out of his club for being a creep. This is not the first time protesters have invoked Trump's past association with Epstein. During Trump's UK visit, activists projected videos of the two men onto Windsor Castle. Others even mocked up commemorative-style mugs and plates, echoing royal souvenirs, with images of Trump and Epstein together, branded with the message, "Never forget." The satirical statue on the National Mall may not last long, but its message has already sparked heated debate. Critics call it a bold reminder of uncomfortable ties, while supporters of Trump dismiss it as little more than a political stunt.
Well, that's all the time we have on this edition of America 360. If you have been, thanks for watching. Do join us again at the same time tomorrow. This is me, Neha Khanna, signing off.